Good afternoon, everybody. It's Sharon Spurlock from the St. Louis ARC Family Support Team, and we're here for this week's Q&A, continuing our conversation about assistive technology in the state of Missouri and all the different resources that are out there for the individuals we support, so that you'll know how to tap into this really great resource. I've got an amazing guest with me today from the Department of Mental Health. Hello, Holly. I'm so glad you're here with us today. I usually just ask people to start with an introduction of who they are and what brings them to the table here.
Well, Sharon, thank you so much for inviting me today. And I'm really excited about this. Our Technology First initiative in the state of Missouri is something very close to my heart. I think it's an amazing thing that we get to do for our folks. And recently, I was the Technology First specialist for the Universal Design and Assistive Technology Provider Relations team. And just recently, I was able to take on a new role as the Director of Provider Relations for the state of Missouri. So I'm really excited to talk to you about it today. And I'm so excited to get to share some ideas and some slides with you guys about ways to think about how technology might be able to support you and your loved ones, and ideas and things that maybe are everyday that you might not have considered before as technologies. Here are just a few myths that I've ran into, and I was able to connect with Missouri Assistive Technology this Saturday. We did a conference together in Kirksville, Missouri, their annual community inclusion conference. And we came across some very interesting myths, and we were working together to bust these myths so they don't get in people's way anymore. And some of those are all AT is complicated and high tech. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be expensive. There are no prerequisites to having assistive technology. No one checked that you could use your smartphone before you went out and bought that brand new iPhone in 2009, 2010, when we were all in the world of flip phones, still back again. And what worked great for one person might not be the solution that is going to work for another person. So it really needs to be looked at through that individualized lens. There are 4 different kinds of technology. And they go from no tech to very high tech. So some no tech solutions might be something that you make at home. It might be using some PVC pipe to build up a handle so that someone can grip it properly. It might be cutting open a shampoo bottle and attaching it to your faucet so the water runs out farther from the end of the sink so you can get to it. Or it could be really high tech. We were playing with the OB feeding robot and eye gazing technology during the conference. That's some high tech equipment that can do some amazing things. And of course, there's everything in between. I loved this visual about the assistive technology umbrella. Assistive technology can be a service, it can be a device, or it can be both. So in our DD waiver, we have things like a medication administration support system that is both a device and has monthly technology built into it as a service. It helps remind you to take your medication. It helps track how you're doing with that medication. It can track your heart rate. It can track your blood pressure for you. So, sometimes we have to look at what the person actually needs. Is it a device? Is it an iPad? Because that's what they've been using and that's what they're aware of. Or is it a service? Is it an application? Is it a HERS and MERS system, for example? So 3 things to kind of think about when you're looking at technology are consideration, exploration, and implementation. So when we're considering technology, we're going to look at what the barrier is that the person is facing in order to meet their goal. And then we're going to take all of their things into account. What's their comfort level with technology? My mom's a huge techie. Like, she's got every brand new piece of technology out there. She loves it. In my personal life, I'm actually more on the Luddite scale. I don't use my phone unless I need to. I turn off my computer at the end of the day and I don't want to look at it again. So what's the individual's comfort level? What's their environment? Are they going to be using it at school, at work, in the community, only at home? What are the tasks they're trying to accomplish? And then we find the tool. And then we might have to make some exploration about what tool is that. And that's where things like lending libraries through Missouri Assistive Technology or the ARC's Life Tech program might come in to help. Some schools will offer some technology exploration. Your local public library, or maybe going to a swap and shop or our tech fair, our tech fest, which we're going to have some more of those happening around the state as well. And then implementation. Who's going to be using it? Who's going to support the who using it? And what follow-up might the person need? Do they need additional support and education to make that successful? We don't want to get this beautiful, amazing support to a person and then not support them to use it and have technology abandonment. That's not going to support them to meet their goals in the long run. So this was a slide that Missouri Assistive Technology did, and I shamelessly stole it because I thought it was the best way to think about funding and acquisition of technology that I've ever seen. And they're using the support star, which I'm sure you guys are all familiar with the Life course. And they've put the funding and acquisition of resource of technology in the center. So whatever that might look for that person. And then they all around it have talked about, is it an eligibility service? Can we get it for the waiver? Is it the school? If it's work related, can their employer do it? Is it something that they can get there? We always seem to forget about this one up top for some reason. Personal strengths and assets. What does a person have available to them? Do they have some birthday money or Christmas money that they want to buy a device that they can, not only use for communication, but can game on too and build their community of fellow gamers? So I loved the thought of using the support star to really dig in and find how technology might support a person. So what is available in our DD waivers? We have 5 different types of assistive technology within our assistive technology service waiver definition. And it includes devices, services, education, consultation, and remote monitoring or remote support. We use those terms interchangeably, but they're really not. And I'll get into more of that in a minute. So devices and equipment, those are those one-time purchases. So if you have been using an iPad in school and you're getting ready to graduate, or you just got this and you're 4 years from graduating, but the school's like, nope, this is my iPad. It's only going to stay here at school. You're not allowed to take it home. Well, let the waiver help you. If you have the waiver, let your support coordinator know, because it's quite possible we can get the exact same iPad with the exact same application on it to you through the waiver. So that's an option of how to kind of explore devices too. Services are anything that has a monthly fee associated with it. So that's going to be your medication administration supports. I don't know if you guys have met Spencer, but he's pretty cool. That's your personal emergency response and mobile emergency response services. And of course, any applications. So we have MapHabit. We're working to bring on a communication device company that would fall under this. If you're getting an application like App to Speak through Missouri Assistive Technology, it might fall under this category too. Education and support is going to be specific to that device or that services. So when we bring on that communication device provider, fingers crossed, we'll be able to provide extra education and support. So like MapHabit, they're going to provide a startup for you. But then what if 6 months down the road, you have a new direct care professional who needs trained as well? Well, we can support that through education and support. And then we have consultation. And this consultation is an overall look at technologies, what your goals are, and how to support those goals. So those can be done by the UDAT team through provider relations. That's the Universal Design and Assistive Technology team. Missouri Inclusive Housing can do a consultation, and Missouri Assistive Technology can also do that consultation. And then, as I said, we have the big service of remote support and remote monitoring, which doesn't have to be so big.
Holly, before we leave this slide, I want to ask a quick question. Actually, it will maybe come up here. with the waiver, if people have a waivered service, you have to justify your need for a funded service in writing in the ISP process. Can you talk a little bit about kind of tips on how to be successful in asking for equipment?
Yes. When we're looking at technology, we're working backwards. So we're not looking for the technology device or the piece of equipment that's going to solve it all. What we're looking for is what's the goal? What's the outcome? And then what's the barrier that that individual is running into to achieving that outcome? Then we look at, is there a technology that can overcome, circumvent, blow up that barrier? And then what might that piece of technology be? And that's how we write the justification for it. This person is unable to communicate outside of school because the barrier, the school has kept their communication device at school because the school paid for it through their funding. Therefore, we need the same communication device they have been using at school, has been successful in communication, to be purchased through the waiver. If your support coordinator runs into those kind of blocks, they can reach out to the UDAT team to get that support and walk them through that same line of thought. The UDAT team members have an accreditation, a nationally recognized accreditation, as enabling technology information specialists, and it allows us to actually meet the waiver definition of a consultation. So if your team needs that extra support, they can reach out to UDAT, and I've got their email address on a slide for you guys, and they can actually walk you through and find where those barriers are, how to overcome them, even give ideas for technology or technology solutions, and maybe even some ideas of how we can work with Missouri Assistive Technology or Life Tech to get those tried out and true. And actually, I know a few of our technology providers will trial services and supports and devices as well. So a lot of times it's just asking the question. Remote support and remote monitoring. I put a little asterisk there because when we're talking about remote support in our waiver definition, we're actually talking about remote monitoring. And that's a system that includes sensors. It can include motion detectors, seizure. Some of the seizure pads and technologies we have now have really improved over the years. So if you've tried it before and it wasn't quite sensitive and it wasn't catching it, maybe give it another try because the technology has improved quite a bit. Talk to text has improved quite a bit. Alexa almost understands me now, which is pretty amazing. But what it is, it's a full system that includes sensors. It includes a response center. It includes services that can be delivered on demand, but those services are more like, I forgot I was supposed to change my laundry over and I can't remember what the setting is on the washing machine. Can you tell me that? So it'd be things for verbal prompts, verbal reminders, those kind of things. It can also dispatch in-person support if needed. So, what that would look like is Holly always wakes up at 3 o'clock in the morning. She uses the bathroom. She's back in bed at 3:10. Well, on this particular morning, she wasn't back in bed by 3:10. So the response center called her. No response. They tried again, no response. Well, now we're going to dispatch her in-person support to figure out why she's not responding, why she's not back in bed. Maybe I fell asleep on the couch in a different part of the house. Maybe I fell in the bathroom and I need help. And that's what that in-person response would do, all based on the monitoring and the sensors in the home. We use remote support and remote monitoring to increase independence, and it provides confidence for people to be alone when maybe they've never had the opportunity to be alone before and have that independence. The only time remote support wouldn't work in conjunction with our waivers is for shared living environments and for host home environments. But say you're a mom and dad and you're doing that high five down the hallway because one of you sleeps up during the day and is up and the other one has to be up all night. Remote monitoring might be a system where you both could go to sleep at night because you would get an alert or an alarm if your support was needed for your loved one. So it's always,
That's such good clarification because I often forget that that's something you can get in a family home. So really nice. And I just want to kind of highlight here, Holly, maybe you can speak to this. I think sometimes there's a lot of anxiety about not having a physical person in the home with somebody. Can you talk a little bit about the pros and cons of having a person versus having remote monitoring?
yeah, and it's going to be very individualized, but we've had some people who are in their 30s and they've never spent a day alone. They've never been able to pop some popcorn, sit on their couch, and watch the movie they want to watch without staff hovering about them. So it will increase that independence. If you have a staff member who's asleep on the couch and the person doesn't really need them there, then they're not going to be able to get up and support them any faster than having your next door neighbor be alerted that they might need that same level of support. So it really is independent on the person, and you can go slow. So say someone wants to try this out. There's no rule saying that they have to do it for 8 hours at a time. It can be 30 minutes to start with. A great example, a young man didn't want to have as a babysitter his PA support with him when he got home from school. He wanted to hang out with his buddies, play some video games, and he didn't want to be watched. So we used remote supports. So what happens is when he gets home, the door opens up, mom gets a text alert. He sits down on the couch, mom gets a text alert. The Xbox turns on, mom gets a text alert. So we know he's home, he's on the couch, he's got the Xbox on, everything's good to go. She can also use the intercom system to push a button on her phone and ask, everything okay? Doing good?
I think that's so important. I think people don't understand the level of sophistication of that. And the opposite side of that coin is if you're relying on paid staff, they get sick. They leave for other jobs, and then you have giant gaps, and then you don't have any way to manage this. And so I think this is such a great alternative to a person.
Right. And it can grow and change with you too. So, you start it now for, high school support or junior high support. And when they've, grown and move on to the other parts, they can take this with them and they can take those skills and independence with them as well. Here are things that I hear all the times from parents and providers about the trouble of getting assistive technology services authorized. First and foremost, assistive technology does not require a bid. There is only one company who does Spencer. If Spencer is the medication administration support you want, you're not going to find it anywhere else. Dose Health is its own company. Can other companies buy their equipment? Yes, but we contract specifically with Dose Health. I was preparing for another presentation, trying to figure out how many apps were out there in the world. And the best number I found was 1,600 apps are released per day per platform. So that means 1,600 apps a day for Apple and 1,600 apps for Google Play Store. There's no way we can ever compare those apples to apples. Assistive technology does not require a bid. So if your support coordinator says, well, we got to find 2 bids for that, you send them over to the UDAT team and we will help them not to get bids. Another thing is we don't require therapists, doctor's notes, anything like that for assistive technology. And I threw an asterisk up on this one, just because if you are working with someone who is trying to improve their communication by using technology, you might want to work with a speech therapist. Speech therapists are specifically trained to figure out which communication device will help their style of communication the best. So while we can try out a lot of communication devices with Missouri Assistive Technology, we can get them through the waiver. It might be a good idea to go ahead and contract with that speech therapist and ask for that service too, just so we make sure that we're getting the best possible solution on the first try. Because I know a lot of folks, They'll try it, it won't work, they'll get frustrated, and they don't want to try something else again. They don't want to go through the whole trial and error process. So if we're talking about communication, that might be a good place to start. Remote supports does require due process and an assessment. The assessment just tells us where the gaps are. So say someone wants to use remote supports, but they struggle with calling 911. Okay, that's not a problem. We can install a panic button that when they hit it, big red button, when they hit it, it automatically calls 911 or their emergency response person. So that could be a panic button that's put in the bathroom. So say they do fall in the bathroom, they can hit that button, it immediately calls their emergency person. Could also be connected to 911. And that's what that assessment tells us, is how does this person work with this system and what do we need to do to make it work for them? One of the questions I've gotten recently from families is that remote supports was thought of like as a surveillance, like Big Brother. That's not what we're doing with remote supports. It's not our surveillance system. A lot of times you won't even know they're in the house. They're sensors, they're mats, they're very thin. They can go in between a mattress and a box spring. One of the new ones we have goes underneath the bedpost. So when the person gets up out of bed, it turns on a really soft nightlight across the floor. So the floor is illuminated, so you're not blinded, but it's illuminated enough where you can see. So it reduces tripping and falling hazards. But because it's a pressure sensor like that, it can also tell if someone's had a really bad night of sleep. They wiggle a lot. It can sense seizures. It can help with falling. So if someone falls out of bed, it would know that as well. And the other thing is that AT, assistive technology, specialized medical equipment, and environmental adaptations are 3 separate definitions that can work together to build an environment that is universally designed for that individual. And what that means is that no matter who walks in the room, they can use every piece of it. An example I like to give is someone needed to widen a doorway because their wheelchair didn't fit through this one doorway to get into their home. So we widened the doorway and realized they couldn't open the door. Well, that's not very helpful. So we were able to use EAA to widen the door and then assistive technology to buy them an automatic door opener. So they can literally hit the button at the bottom of their ramp. And by the time they get to the top of the ramp, their door's open. We can also use electronic door locks so that key fob or the keypad can actually be at the bottom. So they can put in their code to unlock the door, open up the door with the electronic door opener and go right in their home. So that increases independence for folks too, because now they have access in and out of their home without having additional support. So I'm going to pause here and I'm going to end this because I know we have some questions. I think my next slide is just the who can help slide. And that's about the UDAT team, Missouri Assistive Technology, and our Technology First and Universal Design at dmh.mo.gov.
Actually, as you've talked, we've answered several of the questions. I guess one of the things that I think is important is just the background on being a technology first state. You know, what were the decisions that made Missouri say this is a priority we want?
So if you guys aren't aware, and I'm sure everyone is, there's a national staffing crisis occurring. We literally don't have enough humans to support our human need for support. And technology can help do that. Technology can also help bridge the gaps and give people just the right amount of support. So we're not over supporting them and taking away independence that they could have on their own if we didn't just say, oh, well, here you go. You need 24/7 ISL supports. Boom. Maybe they don't need that level of support, and technology can help provide just the amount of supports that someone needs so that they can be supported in their home. And it's a huge savings to the state. So in remote supports, that allows one direct care professional to support multiple people. So it helps our providers be able to put their staff where staff are really, really needed, and then support people with just the amount of support they need without bombarding them with people always being in their house, in their, up in their business, messing up their TV, changing their radio stations. So that's part of it, is to really increase that independence and allowing folks to have the level of support and services they want and need.
But I have one more question I want to make sure I ask, and that is, you talked about once you've got an initiative like this, obviously you all spent a lot of time building in technology into our waivers so that we can provide some funding support. What other kinds of initiatives and partnerships do you have, Holly, that kind of help create this space for technology all over the state?
UDAT works really, really close with our Missouri Employment First initiative.
Oh.
There's a huge intersection of technology and support. And we recently have built into our waivers the ability to do some remote supports for employment. So say a person's been working on the job and they're struggling because they have their job coach standing over their shoulder and they don't feel like they're part of the group. They have trouble talking to their work friends because, there's this person standing here all the time. By using technology, we can remove the physical person, but keep all of their supports in place. So we have a huge intersection of technology and employment. There's also a work group called the Missouri Brain Injury Resource Foundation that DMHDD is partnering with to help bridge some of the gaps for our folks who have brain injury service needs. And technology can be a huge support there. So we're really trying to bring in and weave this technology into those everyday things. I'm sure no one thought twice today about picking up their iPhone this morning or their smartphone.
Is this only available being funded through the waiver? And for Department of Mental Health, it's a yes, right?
So we have it available through the waiver, but if you go back to that support star with funding and funding acquisition, there are other options to get this funded. And Missouri Assistive Technology has some great programs. They even have a microloan. So if you need, you want to build your credit and you want to get a microloan for your very first iPad or your own computer, you can actually work with them and get a microloan and fund it that way as well.
And our technology program is for people that do not have a waiver.
That's right.
We try to make sure we fill gaps by partnering with each other. And I know you and Chris have a pretty good alliance going on.
Yeah, Chris is great to work with. And we're doing a lot with UMKC, Institute for Human Development, as well.
This is just, I love this. I think it's so important to have experts like you, like Chris, like Missouri Assistive Technology, because we can't keep up with the 1,600 apps or the new additions in remote monitoring. But what you can do, everybody out there, is you can go to the people who support you and say, I'd like to be more independent in taking my medication, or I'd really like to have a half hour at home without somebody up in my business all the time, and then talk through what those options are. Pull out that integrated support star and look at what your choices might be, that where technology could come in to help. And Holly, I'm going to wrap up with you. What else did you want to talk about today, and did you want to share with people?
If you do have support coordinators and they are lacking or struggling themselves with some of our technology, just send them back to UDAT, the UDAT team. We are partnering with Shift, which is a nationally recognized education platform all about technology. And we do have spaces open still for support coordinators, utilization review chairs, QEs, your self-directed service specialist, to take a fundamentals training on technology so they can get some baseline support to help support out the team. So if any of you guys are listening, there is still time and there are still spaces available.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.